Welcome everybody. We are going to get started in about 2 minutes here. We're just going to wait for everybody to join the virtual session, but welcome to Columbia Climate School's Masters of Arts in Climate and Society virtual information session. We're thrilled that you're joining us. Welcome. Again, for those of you that are just now opening the Zoom, we are going to be getting started in about 2 minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to join, but welcome to the session. And actually, while we are waiting for those of you that are joining us now, I'd love to know where everybody is joining us from. So if you don't mind, either the chat might be disabled, but feel free to use the Q&A. I'd love to hear where you're joining us from. If you could go ahead and put your city and state or the country that you might be in. I'm Alfred. I'm in New York City, in Manhattan in particular.
I'm Emily, and I'm in Brooklyn currently. Also in New York.
Thanks, Emily. And Emily is our current, forgive me, Emily's our recent graduate, actually. Kenya, Nairobi, welcome. Austin, I saw New York City. Brazil, phenomenal. Hawaii, DC. I'm coming down to DC next week. Antara, I'm going to be down there.
Born and raised in Texas, so I see.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Austin, Texas. So for those of you joining from Texas,
Dallas, yes,
Dallas,
we have.
Austin. I see some Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn currently, so
Nice. Kings County, yeah. So
yeah, Kings County, DC,
Boston, Iran, Mexico City, Fayetteville, Arkansas, welcome. Athens, Georgia. I'm Manhattan, Isaiah, I'm Manhattan. Virginia. I'll throw out there, fun fact, I'm also a Floridian. So if we have any Florida people in the house, I'd love to know. In New Jersey, welcome. Oh, Lily, I'm so glad you're joining us. North Carolina, welcome, Zoe. Uganda, welcome. China, excellent. Oh my goodness, it's so late over there by you. Thank you so much for joining. Colorado. Well, we're thrilled that you're here with us today. And I just want to say again, thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started on the Climate and Society virtual information session. So welcome. My name is Alfred Ayub. I'm the Director of Admissions and Marketing here at Columbia Climate School. And joining me today is Emily Weaver. Emily is one of our most recent graduates of the MA in Climate and Society program, and she is going to be sharing with you a great deal of information as it relates to her background, her experiences in the program, a general sense of the learning community, and certainly the diversity of the learning community, and what she's currently doing, how the program helped her in her current role. And then also joining me on the back end, a critical member of the team is Damaris Diaz. Damaris is going to help with our Q&A as well. So let's go ahead and get started without further ado. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just briefly go over the agenda. Columbia Climate School is a new and dynamic place, and it's certainly worthy of having a little bit of background discussion about it. So I'm going to give you a kind of a broad overview of Columbia Climate School and its history. We're then going to discuss our most recent incoming cohort, so the fall 2023 cohort, the student profile. We're also going to detail the curriculum overview, talking about the climate core, as well as the electives available and the new specializations. I'll also touch on our summer internship and/or capstone experience. And then we are also going to go into professional development opportunities, financial aid, and because I work in admissions, my favorite part, the application process, of course. I always say the most riveting part. So without further ado, before I begin and talk about Columbia Climate School, I mentioned, I introduced Emily briefly, but I'd love for Emily to share a little bit more about her background. Emily, if you could share with us kind of where you're from, your academic journey, and how you came to the Columbia Climate School, kind of your climate school story.
For sure. Thank you so much for having and for everyone to join. So my name is Emily, and I grew up in Austin, Texas, and I went to undergrad at Rice University, which is in Houston, Texas. I'm the first in my family to go to college, and when I first went to college, I very quickly grew interested in environmental studies and environmental justice. I think it contextualized a lot of what I saw in my upbringing growing up in East Austin, and kind of dove um, very directly into like the environmental justice movement. And when I was in undergrad, I studied anthropology and environmental studies and policy analysis, which really ended up kind of manifesting in a very interdisciplinary and multi-curricular background. So while living in Houston, I worked for Houston Climate Justice Museum with the co-directors. I worked on exhibitions. I also worked at the busiest coffee shop in Houston doing sustainability management. And I kind of, through various roles, found ways to weave this passion for sustainability and climate into kind of all avenues of my life. So I went straight to Columbia after graduating undergrad, and yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. And, one thing I want to note is Emily is here to answer questions as well. So please feel free to plug questions into the Q&A if you're seeking kind of a recent graduate's perspective. So just wanting to highlight that. And this is not the end of Emily. Emily is going to be weaving kind of throughout the presentation. So discussing Columbia Climate School, Columbia University is a global leader in climate and sustainability education, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. And education programs at the Climate School provide the interdisciplinary knowledge base for future climate leaders to work with business, communities, governments, and civil societies to address the climate crisis. And, the MA Climate and Society program, truly there is no program more diverse in terms of, I feel, their learning community and the lenses with which they bring to the climate crisis, the areas with which they want to work. We're going to talk about it in the student section, but I want to emphasize that I don't feel like there's any one, and Emily, I hope you agree with me, but I don't feel like there's one kind of cookie cut climate and society student. Every climate and society student kind of has their own vision, mission, and goal in terms of what they want to do in the climate space. Some of our students are climate communicators. Maybe they want to become climate journalists. Some of our students are deeply interested in climate finance and want to work in the private sector as it relates to impact investing, for example. Some of our students are interested in climate policy, working in state and local government. So our learning community is very diverse, but the common thread is what I like to call the climate core within our curriculum. And we're going to talk about that. In terms of when you say Columbia University and Columbia Climate School is the newest school within the university, but Columbia University itself, we classify ourselves as a blueprint within the United States for research institutions. We are the fifth oldest university in the United States, the oldest in the state of New York. And underneath the Columbia University umbrella are 21 distinct schools. 4 of them are undergraduate divisions. The remaining are professional graduate schools. And you can think of them like Columbia Law School, Columbia Business School, the Mailman School of Public Health, which Emily is currently working with closely, the School of International and Public Affairs, which one of our partner programs are embedded within. And the newest school now is Columbia Climate School. We were announced in 2020 and launched in 2021. But to say that briefly would be a disservice to our true history, because we have a very long-standing relationship here at Columbia University first through Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory and then the Earth Institute. So I'd like to talk about these 2 major research centers by which we were birthed out of, and then kind of briefly discuss the Climate School's founding. So, our true beginning is with Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, which is an observatory located 20 miles north of our campus. It's a 189-acre campus. In fact, it's pictured there on the left. It's beautiful. It's right on the Hudson River. Many of our research centers are based there, including the International Research Institute for climate and society. And Lamont Doherty has served a critical role in the earth and environmental sciences. In fact, it is literally ranked the #1 scientific institution in the US devoted to earth and environmental sciences. Another fun fact is one of our Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory faculty members and researchers coined the term back in 1972, global warming. Prior to that, the term did not exist. So global warming we attribute to Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory and the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences here at Columbia. And in addition to that, Lamont's research includes the development of the first model to accurately predict extreme weather associated with El Nino. So Lamont has been seismic in terms of its research and impact in the field. And then in the 1990s, Columbia University established the Earth Institute. So it was actually established in 1996, and it is the largest research institute here at Columbia University. There's over 750 environmental scientists, policy managers, lawyers, engineers working on issues across sustainable development and environmental management. So again, when we say Columbia Climate School is the newest school within Columbia, our footprint is really founded on Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory and the Earth Institute. So now I want to touch on, of course, the degree program with which we're highlighting today, which is the MA in Climate and Society program. And in this degree, students are trained to understand and address the impacts of climate variability and change on society and the environment. We want our students to be able to, if somebody stops you in the street and says, do you believe in climate change? It's much more than saying yes, but you can authentically explain from a scientific lens the climate crisis and why it's occurring globally, and then explain societally how and why other people should feel the impacts and understand those impacts. In addition, it's a very interdisciplinary approach, and Emily's certainly going to talk about how she approached the program, and it comes through especially when we discuss the electives. Many students come to this degree that are very specific and very goal-oriented. They come in and, for example, they might say, listen, I'm deeply interested in the MA Climate and Society, but I really want to focus in on private sector climate finance and sustainability management. So they come, and that's the coursework that they decide to enroll in. Or we have some students that are deeply interested in urban planning and sustainability within urban planning. So they enroll in several Graduate School of Architecture Planning and Preservation courses, for example. And then we have students that are far more exploratory. They know they want to work in the climate space. Some of our students are pivoting to it. Some of our students are diving deeper in it. But they are truly attracted to our MA because you have this phenomenal flexibility within your elective journey to take a potpourri of classes across disciplines. And something else that we very much pride ourselves on is the idea of the learning community. And not only are you coming to a Columbia University because of our incredible faculty and our alumni network, but also because of the students that you learn side by side with. And I'll be touching on the students now, in fact. So in our most recent cohort, so the fall 23 intake, we had 103 students join us. Approximately 40% of our students in the incoming class are international, and 23 countries of citizenship are represented. We're very proud of that. In addition, 18 states are represented among our domestic students. And Emily proudly noted that she's a first-generation college student, and we are very proud of that fact as well. In fact, 15% of our incoming class self-identify as the first in their family to attend college. We're very, very proud of that fact. And then finally, the average age in our cohort is 26 years old. In terms of the education backgrounds, I think this is also something really kind of helpful to highlight. The program historically, it was launched in 2005 underneath the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and it historically attracted a majority STEM background students with the engineering backgrounds, the environmental sciences, the natural and earth sciences. But we've seen that over the last 3 years completely flip, and we've seen a growing interest among students, especially in the social sciences. So for this incoming cohort, Nearly 65% of our students are coming to us with the social science background. I will say that we also lumped in business degrees, so we have quite a few students that majored in finance, for example, that are within that bucket. And then about just over or just under 30% are within the natural and earth science background. And then the remaining are made up of humanities and engineering students. But it's a very, very diverse cohort. So now I'm going to go ahead and touch on the curriculum, the Climate and Society curriculum. As a full-time student, which the vast majority of our students are full-time, it's going to be a 3-semester degree program. And it always begins in the fall, continues into the summer semester, and then concludes, or continues, forgive me, into the spring semester, and concludes in the summer semester. It's made up of 34 credits. 22 of the credits are core courses. And then the remaining credits are going to be electives, 12 credit hours of electives. There is a minimum, forgive me, one thing I want to know, I just had a pause. I was like, what does that mean? And then it just hit me, forgive me. In terms of the per semester, you can take up to 20 credit hours per semester and fall within the flat tuition rate. So that's something that's also extremely, extremely helpful. And Emily, I'd actually like to know, what was your credit hour load? Do you mind sharing? Do you remember what you took?
Oh, I think in the fall I took 18.
Okay.
The spring I took 16 or 17. And then
Okay.
in summer, I think I took 18 again.
Wow, you took 18 in the summer? Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Okay,
yeah.
guys. So,
It was
yeah,
either 18 or 16, but I want to say it was
understood.
18. Yeah.
Okay, understood. So, Emily's extremely ambitious and brilliant. I should note that. But again, it's up, the suggestions that we have below, which you'll see there, 15 credits in the fall, 13 credits in the spring, 6 credits in the summer. Those are the minimums to complete the degree. Because of the flat tuition rate, a lot of students like to take advantage of taking, for example, as Emily noted, 18 credits.
And that was
And
exactly why I did it. So
yeah,
yeah, because it was
excellent.
just the flat tuition anyway. So that was helpful when choosing like other
Excellent,
classes.
excellent. So in terms of the fall semester, you would begin with a dynamics of variability and change course. This class is truly teaching you the science behind climate change from a global perspective. So this course, you're going to be, this is the example I was giving, it's really physics. Emily, do you want to add any, what's your sense on the dynamics class?
I think it's like a really helpful, like kind of overview of climate change and like kind of what you mentioned, a lot of the like physical mechanisms through which climate change happens, understanding like scientifically what's going on, which I had more of my background leaned more social sciences and I had taken climate science courses before, but I think that having like a very condensed overview is helpful so that everyone, regardless of their like disciplinary background, starts out with the same base level of understanding before you kind of move into some of the other classes.
Absolutely. So some students get very intimidated by this class, especially like Emily noted, she was in the social sciences, although she did take quite a few science courses. We do have students that join the program that maybe they haven't taken, an aggressive science course since high school, for example. Maybe they haven't been exposed to calculus in years. Um, this program still could very much be for you. So we do ensure that we have a math boot camp over the summer months to get you up to speed in physics and statistics in particular. While the dynamics course is challenging, it's something that I think anchors all of our students, regardless of their background and their goals post MA Climate Society. Then we have 2 courses. This is the first year that we've introduced them, in fact. We have a climate change mitigation course and a climate change adaptation course. The climate change mitigation course is being taught by Dr. Melissa Lott, who is a energy policy guru. She is somebody that students clamor to take her courses over at the School of International and Public Affairs, and she is teaching this year the climate change mitigation course. She has a phenomenal podcast. I just want to note that I know I plug it, but it's an energy podcast. And it's I don't have a climate background at all, but I really enjoy listening to her talk about, for example, she talks about the European energy crisis now with the war in Ukraine. So it's a really, really fascinating podcast. And then we have climate change adaptation that's taught by Professor Lisa Dale. We wanted to incorporate these courses in our climate core because these are the pillars in addressing the climate crisis. So making sure that you're looking at both climate mitigation as well as climate adaptation, and ensuring that the faculty are speaking to one another about their curriculum is key, and I think really critical for your kind of climate core curriculum. Then we have a quantitative methods for climate change, for climate applications. This course is a 4-credit-hour course. The reason why it's 4 credits is that there is a lab associated with it. This is all about using R to analyze climate data, interpret climate data, tell a story with climate data, provide the necessary data to decision makers. You might ultimately be the decision maker. But I always like to say this course is critical because, as we know, data has become so important across industries and sectors. And so I always say this is your jobs course, essentially. Do you have any, Emily, thoughts on quantitative methods? I know I'm putting you on the spot on that one, but any kind of thoughts on it? How did you enjoy it?
I actually loved that class. I was a little scared going into it because I'd heard just from the previous cohort that it is like challenging, and I would second that, but I didn't have as much familiarity with R as I had with other programming languages. Just like the research that I happened to do before coming into climate used like Python or Stata. So I had never really done a ton with R, but I'd use R every single day now in my job that I do now and in my research that I did at Columbia. So I'm like forever thankful for that class too.
That's awesome.
So, and I like the way it was structured was super accessible. So.
And stay tuned, everybody. Emily will be sharing what she did. So just stay tuned. We're just giving you hints and previews. So in terms of rounding out the spring is applications in climate and society. And this course was largely a seminar style class. And what we do is we bring in individuals from the climate space to come and speak about their experiences working professionally. So I always remember the course that I made sure to set in on was a climate communication kind of climate journalists session in applications where they brought on individuals from NPR, Washington Post, Vox News to talk about how they cover climate, how they, how do you not create panic around climate, but instead generate interest and generate climate action. So that was a really fascinating course that I sat in on. And then wrapping out the program is the summer semester. And I always say that the summer is transforming those concepts into practice. It's taking what you learned in the climate core and across your elective journey, and then applying them to either an internship or alternatively a capstone, one or the other, or both. Very interestingly, in fact, I'm sure Emily can attest to this, there was a number of students in her cohort that pursued both an internship as well as a capstone, interestingly. So that's a summary of the core curriculum, so to speak, and mapping out a full-time schedule. I do want to note for any of you joining us today that might be interested in joining the program part-time, let's say that you're in the New York tri-state area and you have a full-time job, there could be a part-time option for you. It is built within our admissions application. And in fact, our application is live, everybody. So if you want to go ahead and get started on an admissions application, I strongly encourage you to do so. But we do offer a part-time option for very specific profiles, though. I should note that. So it's for students enrolling part-time, generally include one or more of the following. People, for example, with demonstrated significant experience in climate or climate-adjacent space, working professionals currently in any space that can reasonably assert that they can readily apply the curriculum in the program to their current work, or to easily transition to climate or a related field where they can apply the program to that profession. So we are excited to be offering this part-time option. We have a small handful of students this year that did decide to pursue part-time in our fall 23 cohort. Of the 103 incoming students, I believe 5 students ultimately decided to go part-time. And again, if you were interested in part-time, there's going to be a question about that in the admissions application. You would select yes and then provide a brief statement, very short, as to why you need to attend part-time. What would not be classified as a compelling reason to attend part-time is, let's say you said, Alfred, I just graduated. I'm just graduated from undergrad and I'm currently job hunting, so I need to attend part-time right now. That would not be a compelling reason. It's usually for individuals that already are working professionals. And if you did decide to go part-time, it would be a 2-year program rather than a 1-year program. But we have a very kind of rigid structure in place for now, I shouldn't use the word rigid, that sounded negative, but a very organized structure in place for a 2-year program, and it's listed on our website as well. So now I'm going to touch on climate school electives. This is something really exciting in that as we continue to grow and develop as the climate school, we offer a number of electives. In fact, I think the first year I started working here, there were 3 electives offered. This past year, there were 10. This coming year, there's going to be 15. And Emily, in fact, took some electives, and I'm going to allow Emily to ask some questions. But in terms of some of the electives that we are offering, they include climate mobility, regional climate and climate impacts. We have an environmental justice and climate justice core elective this year that we are going to be offering. We're very excited about that. Students are deeply, deeply interested in climate justice as a topic area. And so we wanted to make sure that we're offering a robust variety of courses in that space. So again, Climate Journey, climate electives are very much available to you while enrolled in the MA Climate and Society program. But I think an X factor to the program, and something that so many students get extremely excited about, is the idea of cross-registration. It's a huge benefit of being at Columbia University. And so our program affords you the opportunity to essentially register for any graduate level course across Columbia's graduate schools, and as long as they're 4,000 level or higher. So we have students that take courses at the School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia Engineering, Columbia Law School. We have very popular partner programs within sustainability management and sustainability science. So the School of Professional Studies have some really dynamic sustainability courses that many of our students are deeply interested in cross-register in. We also have close ties to the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, and of course, the Mailman School of Public Health. So I want to pause there and allow, because whenever I speak about this, it is exciting for students. And one other thing before I want to allow Emily to share kind of her experiences and authentically share her experiences in cross-registration too, the good, the bad, hopefully not so ugly, but things to think about. But I always say the number one reason you're coming to the MA Climate and Society program is the climate core, definitively. That should be the driving thrust of your interest. Yes, it's exciting, the electives, but we really want to hear from the applicants that you're hungry for this climate core. Remember, that is your cohort too, by the way. That's the through line. That's what keeps and connects all of you together in the program. So that's something that's very important. Emily, I'd love to hear from you in terms of how you approached the cross-registration, and did you take climate school electives? I would love to hear everything.
For sure. So I did a pretty even split between climate school electives and electives from other schools. I do think obviously the electives that I took from other schools definitely very closely tied to what I was interested in learning more about within the climate space, as well as kind of I think somehow like really well balanced out my climate school knowledge in ways that I think were very unintentional, but also just very well rounded. My first semester, I took classes in the school. I took one class in the School of Professional Studies, which was a audiovisual storytelling class for
Oh, that's
documentary
interesting. Oh,
production
that is.
specifically. Yeah, I didn't mention this, but I have a bit of a background in like media and documentary making. And so it was like kind of circling back to this like old hobby, but my work focused more so on climate change and the climate space. And the professor was very awesome. And I also took a class in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality department that was called Planetary Questions, that was kind of like a ecofeminist and decolonial studies, like a look at environmental studies. And then I think that class in particular was really interesting because there would be weeks where the topics we were discussing, whether it was like the trade winds or it was looking at like certain types of emissions calculations definitely coincided with material I was learning in my Columbia core classes. And so it was really interesting to kind of have that nice balance of a more humanities focus with the Columbia Climate School classes. And then other classes I took, and I've taken the environmental justice class over the summer, which I really liked. In the spring, I took some anthropology electives, which is what my background is mostly in, that I really enjoyed. And then that involved cross registration for the anthropology electives. And then for the I've also took the disaster management class. So
Yes,
yes.
yes. That's all. Yeah, Emily's like a classic case study in terms of the student that's really exploratory, which is phenomenal. It's like she really took advantage of the kind of cross registration. Is there anything that you would have changed, Emily? I'm just out of curiosity in terms of how you approached it.
I don't think so. I think it, well, I work now at, we've kind of alluded to this, but I work now
Yes,
at
go for it.
Minuteman
Let's do
School
it.
of Public Health, and like doing as a research officer. And so I think now, uh, I don't have a super strong background in public health, so I've done a lot of learning on the job and through my like research assistantship that I had during the year. Which has been, I think has been fine, but I think it would have been interesting to take a class at Mailman since I work there so closely now. But I think that's really the only thing I would change. I got to take two like really cool anthropology labs and like talk about like how climate change can change like how anthropologists restore records and how climate change can change like our bodies, which is something that I work with very closely now. So I
That's
think that
awesome.
even though some of my electives, I was definitely the first or the only like climate school student that they've ever had. I think
Oh,
that
that's
it was like, I totally think it was cool to branch pretty far out of the climate school classes that I was taking, as well as also get to dive deeper on some of the electives. So totally second that I was a super exploratory student.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So something else that I'll just note is, and this is very exciting, and it's also included in our admissions application too, as specialization. So this is a new addition to our MA Climate and Society program. These launched for our newest in cohort for fall 2023, and these are going to be available to you applying for the fall 2024. When you're applying for admissions, you have an opportunity to state whether or not you're interested in one of these specializations and select one. What we received was feedback from our past cohorts. Some students, not all, some students wanted the opportunity to dive deeper in a subject area for their elective journey and have guaranteed classes, so to speak, in that said subject area. So we were able to partner with the National Center for Disaster Preparedness and create a disaster risk management specialization, as well as with the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation. In fact, we're very excited to announce Professor Kate Orff has now a joint appointment. Not only is she with the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation, but she's also now a Columbia Climate School professor, which we are thrilled about. And so we've created the Climate and the Built Environment specialization. They provide students an opportunity to focus in a particular area and dive deeper in that subject, and you'll need to take 9 credits to complete the specialization. I just want to, so of the 12 credits of electives, and 12 is the minimum number of electives, meaning as Emily had shared, she took far more electives than just 12 electives. But in order to get the specialization, you would need 9 credits to complete that. Specializations, I want to emphasize, are completely optional. So if any of you are joining me today and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not necessarily interested in disaster risk management, nor climate in the built environment. I have other interests. That's totally fine. You can continue with the spirit of our elective journey and thread together courses that make the most sense for what you're hoping to accomplish. But we wanted to offer these specializations for students that are a little hungrier for a more curated list of electives, so to speak. Something else I just want to note is that you might select a specialization at the time of admission. You might begin your first semester in the fall semester with this specialization and then decide to change your mind. And you can. In the spring semester, you could opt to no longer pursue the specialization, for example. I do want to note specializations will not appear on your diploma. That's a question that's frequently been coming up, and it will not appear on the diploma. So now let's talk briefly about your internship, or the idea of transforming those concepts into practice and taking everything that you've learned in the program and applying them. During the summer semester, students can choose to complete 6-credit internship, either at a nonprofit organization, a private organization, the public sector, the research sector, and we've had students that have performed internships at the World Bank, World Food Program, Center for Climate System Research, the United Nations, USDA Climate Hub, certainly the International Research Institute for Climate and Society. We've had students that have done internships at carbon capture startups. It's very diverse. We do not place you in the internship. It is up to the student to pursue the internship. However, we have a very robust career development arm. Our director of career development is Gerald Contiago. They will be working with you from day one in the program. So immediately in the fall semester, you can book an appointment with them and discuss kind of your academic education background, what you're hoping to get out of the school, and what type of internship and or capstone you're hoping to target. And Gerald will be a resource for you throughout that journey. I'll pause there. I'd love to hear, Emily, how did you, tell me a little bit about, your internship? And I know it was relatively organic, but I'd love to hear how it happens, because so often that's how it happens for students.
Yeah, for sure. So when I guess for a little bit of backtracking, before I started my internship over the summer, I had worked for a professor in the environmental health sciences department at Mailman School of Public Health for both the fall and spring semesters. And so when we were talking about kind of whether, like, when my work would terminate, one thing she asked me was what I would be doing that summer. And I was like, oh, I'm in the process of applying for internships. And then, very long story short, through talking more with her and what I was interested in kind of doing that summer, she ended up creating a position in her lab where I could, it started as a internship, and this might not be a surprise at this point, but it ended up turning into a full-time position. So I now work there full-time doing research, but that's kind of how my summer internship came about. And so I guess I can speak a little bit about the research I did over the summer as well. So the work I did was pretty evenly split between curriculum development, which I really enjoy doing for graduate level classes, and for my the professor I work with for a fellowship that she runs for early career underrepresented minority scientists and researchers in environmental health or related fields. And then the other half was working on more hands-on research activities, including a individual project that I was doing, studying the impact of natural disasters on abortion and healthcare access in the Gulf South. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, Emily. That's like so, yeah, Emily, you're a force. So thank you. I like to always say, like, all of our students are really change agents and very mission driven. Emily is a classic example of that, So, and so in terms of another opportunity would be a consulting capstone, and this is something that has only grown in interest among our cohorts. What's really interesting is something that we've been seeing an increasing trend of is students pursuing both a capstone as well as an internship in the summer, which is very interesting. I do want to note, just from an advising standpoint, that our students, if they pursue the internship and the capstone, then the internship is what would be, the capstone is what will be counted as 6 credit hours towards their degree. And so students can complete those 6 credits in this capstone opportunity. What happens is, as I mentioned earlier, Gerald Contiago, our director of career development, will put together a listing of, this year it was, I believe, 8 different organizations, and our students are able to select their top 3 choices, and then you're placed in hopefully your top choice consulting capstone project, although we can't guarantee that. But this is a true consulting opportunity in a group project sense. Past consulting efforts, one was with the United Nations Foundation for Climate and Environment Program. Their students were climate-proofing food systems in the Global South, assessing investments in research and innovation for resilient smallholder agriculture. My personal favorite, because I'm actually from the Tampa Bay area, and I was like tickled when I saw this project come up, was WFLA TV, based in Tampa Bay, and Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. They were assessing the Tampa Bay area's vulnerability compared to other cities along the west coast of Florida to glean an explanation for the city's vulnerability under climate conditions. And I was very eager to hear that project when it was completed, as there is a great deal, an increasing number of hurricanes coming through that region. So in addition to our, transforming concepts into practice summer, this is the perfect time now to discuss a little bit more about career resources and professional development. So not only do you have our Director of Career Development working with you throughout your education journey, solely dedicated to the MA Climate and Society program, I should add, but you also have employer intro sessions that are occurring throughout the year. We also offer an all Ivy environmental and sustainable career fair. We're super excited this coming February. It will be hosted on campus this year. It had gone virtual for a couple years due to the pandemic, and we're launching it again on campus. And during that event, we attract nearly 100 employers, along with close to 700 students participate across the Ivy League. And then we have an exclusive job listing and alumni directory through Columbia Climate School's Earth Institute. We also have an internship program through the Earth Institute, and then finally, sustainability skills seminars with which we host throughout the year. These can be anything from a sustainability skills seminar on becoming sustainability consultants to lead certification processes. So those are also quite popular among our students. In terms of the graduates for the class of 2022, we've been seeing a very interesting trend. Our students previously or historically used to largely go into the NGO space in the public sector. However, we have seen a significant increase in private sector interest among our students. In fact, 39% of our students ended up going into the private sector in the class of 2022, about 30% in NGOs. The public sector was 16% and academia was 16%. And in fact, Damaris, I hate to put you on the spot, but the employer section of the MA in Climate and Society has a wonderful, one of our colleagues put together a wonderful kind of data visualization graphic where you can see the organizations, the job titles, and you can like go through the distribution list within this pie chart and get a little bit more details on that. So if, in fact, thank you so much, Damaris, for posting the employer section. Everybody, I encourage you to go ahead and take a peek at that. It's definitely worthwhile. In terms of recent graduates, some of our students have been placed. In fact, we had 3 in last year's cohort go to Boston Consulting Group. We had a student go into as a sustainability insight analyst at McKinsey, a geospatial risk analyst at UNICEF. We had a student go into Michigan State Government as a climate data science officer. And then, you know, more historical references, the World Bank has hired our students as climate service consultants. The city of Los Angeles, for example, is a chief sustainability officer. And our alumni network, you know, I mentioned earlier that the program was actually established in 2005, graduated its first class in 2006. But because of that, we have over 600 alumni associated with the MA Climate and Society program. So they are really and truly all over the world, all over the country, working in extremely dynamic roles, both in the private and public sector. And again, this is a small listing of some of those examples. I'm now just going to briefly touch on financial aid and the application process. And I want to make sure that we have some time for the Q&A, as I see quite a few questions have been coming in. So first and foremost, for financial aid, I want to touch on fellowships. So the MA in Climate and Society program does offer what are called Climate and Society fellowships. These are merit-based fellowships. You are automatically considered for them at the time of admissions application. And a lot of students will make me pause and say, Alfred, what do you mean by merit-based fellowships? Can you explain? Are you going to be looking at my college transcripts only to be determining that? And the answer is it's a holistic review. And we look at merit not only on your academic merit, but also professional merit as well. So I want to emphasize that what I mean by merit is also how will you be adding to our cohort? What lens will you be bringing to our learning community to really diversify the learning community? You know, you might be somebody that's currently working as a professional journalist in India, for example, and you have covered stories intimately relating to the climate crisis in the global south. That's a lens that we would absolutely want to hear. That's something that we would be deeply interested in and including in our learning community and could be considered as a part of the merit evaluation. We also have departmental research assistantships. And actually, let me just back up. I do want to provide also some additional details about the Climate and Society Fellowships. For the fall 2023 incoming cohort, just under 50% of our students received a Climate and Society Fellowship, and the fellowship awards range from $10,000 to upwards of $35,000. So I do want to just note that. If you are interested in a fellowship, then you should absolutely apply by our January 15th, 2024 deadline for fall 2024 intake. That's our priority deadline. And in fact, Damaris, if I could ask you to do one more thing, if you could go ahead and in the chat box, go ahead and plug our application web page. Anybody that hasn't started an application yet and you're interested in fall 2024, go ahead and create an account today. Go ahead and get started and just open the admissions application, start looking at the questions, looking at the requirements. I think it's a very good practice. You can log in and log out at your leisure, but get started sooner rather than later. In terms of departmental research assistantships, we offer approximately 30 of those. They are competitive. You do apply for them at the beginning of the fall semester, and it's a $6,000 compensation. So you would, for the fall and spring semester, you would receive $3,000 for the fall and $3,000 for the spring for a departmental research assistantship. And then finally, we always like to highlight external fellowships. You should absolutely be pursuing external fellowships at this stage. And if I could, and Damaris, you're a star, if you could pull this one, last but not least, the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences does have external fellowship directories that I encourage students at this stage to start reviewing. So if we could just plug the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences external fellowship directory in the chat, that would also be awesome. Finally, we do have a number of students that do utilize federal and private loans. The Graduate School of Arts and Sciences is our Office of Financial Aid for all of our students. And in terms of for international students, for those of you joining us internationally, there are two organizations that works with Columbia University students. One is Empower, the other is Prodigy Financial. And those organizations are of particular interest because they do lend to international students and they do not require the students to have a US or permanent resident cosigner. So I just want to note that as well. In terms of applying to the MA in Climate and Society program, our online application, as I mentioned, for fall 2024 has launched. It is live, and if you haven't started one, I definitely recommend doing so. It is a holistic admissions process. It's not formulaic whatsoever. So in the online application, you're going to upload your resume. We then also ask for 2 letters of recommendation. One of those letters should be academic if, and that's a big if, you were enrolled in a university within the last 5 years. If those of you joining me have not been in any university within the last 5 years, then the 2 recommendations can be professional recommendation letters. But I have another big hint. Please, please, please avoid any personal email accounts. Professional and/or academic recommendation letters should come from organization email accounts and/or university college.edu email accounts. So that's one other nuance I want to mention. We also ask that you upload your unofficial college transcripts. We can make an admissions decision based on unofficial college transcripts, but we also need all of your unofficial college transcripts. So let's say you said to me, Alfred, I attended the American University of Beirut for my first 2 years of study, and my second 2 years I attended Syracuse University. Do you need both of those transcripts, or can I just send you Syracuse, since the Syracuse University is where I graduated from? We would need both of those official college transcripts, or forgive me, unofficial. So you would upload those unofficial college transcripts to the portal. And then for those of you joining, if English is not your first language and it was not the sole language of instruction in your undergraduate university, we would either need the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo tests submitted. And then finally, and most critically, is your statement of purpose. And I do want to go over the statement of purpose prompt, and then I'm going to put Emily on the spot. Forgive me, Emily, and I'd love to hear kind of your ethos on how you approach the statement of purpose. So stay tuned for that. So in terms of applying the statement of purpose, please share the key experiences that have contributed to your commitment to work on climate change issues. In addition, what are your academic and professional goals, and what knowledge and skills are you hoping to develop through enrollment in Columbia Climate School? And finally, why is enrollment in Climate and Society critical in helping you achieve your goals? And which Climate and Society core course are you most excited to complete? That last element, we want to hear from you. Maybe it's the mitigation class. Perhaps it's the dynamics course. Maybe you're extremely excited about R. But bottom line, we want to know which core course you're most excited to complete as well. So Emily, out of curiosity, any like tips or tricks? How did you approach the statement of purpose?
Yeah, so I think when I was working on my statement of purpose, I'm trying to remember because this was a while
It
back. I
has been
think,
a while. It was a different prompt too. So in fairness to Emily,
yeah,
she had a slightly different prompt. But
I
yeah,
think broadly, I can speak kind of broadly about when I was applying with that prompt. Some strategies I used were, I'm a big fan of outlines. So I created a big outline kind of where I tied maybe like whether it was personal experiences I'd had or work experiences that I'd had, or just like classes I'd taken, things that interest me. I connected them what was I just kind of listed everything that I felt like was related to the individual questions asked in the prompt. And I did a lot of outlining, restructuring. I wrote a ton of drafts and had like my roommates and my friends read them, and my advisor from undergrad read them. And so there was a ton of workshopping that went into my prompts, or like to answer the question. And I started kind of talking about what personally drew me to be interested in environmental justice and climate justice, which is kind of speaking to some growing up the child of a migrant farm worker, and kind of learning about some of the environmental inequities without necessarily having the scientific or academic language to pinpoint those inequities. And I kind of spoke to that and then connected subsequent experiences that I had to environmental justice and climate justice as a whole. And that was a little bit of the process that I went through, is starting with the personal and then going into the more kind of formal academic and professional side of things, and how obviously the Columbia Climate School can kind of help me get to the next step of my career goals.
awesome. Thank you, Emily. So wrapping things up, and then I want to go into Q&A. The application deadline, priority deadlines, January 15th, 2024. I want to just say this, everybody joining this session today, those of you that are going to be applying for fall 2024, there is no reason not to take advantage of the January 15th deadline. You still have plenty of time. Decisions will be released by March, and it's recommended if you are interested in climate and society fellowship consideration. So definitely take advantage of January 15th, 2024. That means your application is complete by January 15th, 2024. And then finally, the final admissions deadline is March 1st, 2024. And this is our contact information, admissions@climate.columbia.edu. And I want to, and then follow us across our social media channels. Columbia Climate School has a really awesome Instagram account. If anybody still Facebook's here, it's there. We also have a Twitter, but we have some really fun content that we put out there, so I can't like give it a plug enough. So definitely check out our social media. But now let's go into Q&A. Damaris, do you want to share any top questions that seem to be coming in that you think are helpful for many people?
I saw a
Oh,
couple that were asking about like student experience that were asked that I can speak to while
awesome. Let's begin with, if we could
also,
start with
yeah.
Emily. Yeah, Emily, if you see any like high level questions that you're like, Alfred, I could totally answer these. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. I saw one that Hutchinson asked about experience with climate and society faculty, and like a faculty member that stood out to me and why. So I guess I can start with that. I really broadly liked I have only had positive experiences with Columbia Climate School faculty. I found that they are some of the like nicest, smartest, and very flexible people. I always think it like for me it was a very and it still is, now that I still work at Columbia, it's always just very surprising when I think just because of the sheer amount of like knowledge and experience that our professors have, when they'll like name drop like a very famous academic or researcher or person that they've worked with. When I was in a class, a women, gender, and sexuality studies class, our professor was referring to a book that Angela Davis wrote, and called her Angela, and was like, oh, sorry, like since she was my thesis advisor, like I always call her by her first name, but Angela Davis. And we were like, oh my gosh, not Angela Davis was as your thesis advisor. So, but I have tons of experiences like that still in my job at Mailman now. But I just appreciate that I'm constantly learning from professors at Columbia. I think one of my favorite professors in the climate and society program specifically is Dr. Ming-Feng Ting, who does she still teach quant or
You know what? She's doing dynamics this year, but she might be
okay.
teaching. Yeah, yeah. She pivoted to dynamics. Yeah.
That's well, I really enjoyed working with her. I had her for the quantitative class, but I really loved working with her. She's super sweet and a really great professor, and I enjoyed working with her a lot.
Awesome.
Um, and
Awesome.
I saw there was another question about getting involved with research.
Yeah, please, Emily. Yeah.
For sure. I so what I how I got involved in research, Alfred talked a little bit about how there are graduate research assistantships available to climate and society students. There's like set number with predetermined research projects. I went about getting involved in research a different way, which was I found faculty that I was interested in the work they did, and um, I just emailed them and just introduced myself and talked briefly about a little bit about my background, but also more so that I was interested in the work they were doing. And it just so happened that one of the professors I emailed was brand new to Columbia and was looking to kind of build a lab, including hire some graduate research assistants. So that's kind of how that ended up working out. But I would totally recommend, that's like a very normal thing that professors get are these like cold emails about just like the work they do, opportunities for students. And so I would definitely recommend if you end up not doing a climate school specific research fellowship, but you still want to do research, which was the case for me. I think that that was a really uh, rewarding process that ended up being something that I still do now.
And Emily, Jose in Brazil, I love Jose. Welcome from Brazil. Jose asked, "Are all courses core courses? Are they seminar style? Can you talk a little bit about like the style because some of the courses are larger. Like the applications course was an auditorium. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the rhythms of the core courses?"
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. So for the most part, courses are I would say seminar style in the sense that there tends to be a lot of discussion. For other than applications, they're broken up into smaller class sizes of about like 35 to 40, would you say? Or are they even smaller? Okay. Um,
Yeah, no, the 35 to 40. Or no, no, around, forgive me. It's just, it would be in the high 40s. Forgive
it would
me.
be in the high 40s.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So for what the current class size is, they're in the high 40s. So they tend to be a little bit smaller than the more auditorium style. But I think for the most part, there's a mix of lecture, guest speakers, kind of like smaller, like in-group breakout like assignments or breakout class activities. So there tends to be kind of a mix of what you're doing while you're actually in class. So when you see like when you register, there'll be like a 3 hour block, but it's not 3 hours of lecture. Usually, very seldom is it 3 hours of lecture. It tends to be more hands-on experiential learning and a good mix of like expert voices, professor experience. But yeah, it tends to not necessarily be maybe like a traditional seminar where you do like a reading and then have like a longer discussion about it. Although I will say some of the electives I've taken tend to be more that style where it's like reading, discussion, bringing in like your own work experience or personal experience. So
Awesome. And then Katie G asked, could you please tell me about the areas of specialization, disaster risk management, and climate in the built environment? Would that result in a certificate? Katie, it's such a good question. The specialization does not result in a certificate, and it does not result in being listed on your diploma or your transcript beyond the fact that you took these 9 credit hours. It's an opportunity to have you dive deeper into that given subject. So again, it was based on feedback from our students in terms of asking for more curated listings of electives. So I hope that answers it, Katie. And then Nick asked, how does the Climate and Society program principally differ from Columbia's other sustainability and environment graduate programs, i.e. the MPA in Environmental Science Policy? We love the MPA program, Nick. The Sustainability Management program and Sustainability Science programs, they're phenomenal. I work very closely with colleagues at all 3 of those programs. Those programs, how they differ, I would say, is in terms of course structure. The learning communities can be quite different, and somewhat the outcomes. You know, sustainability management, the vast majority of their students are going into the private sector, but that's not to say that the MPA in environmental science policy doesn't have a significant number of students going into the private sector, or likewise climate and society, you know. One of our upcoming guest speakers, in fact, Emily would know exactly what I'm talking about, is now in Morgan Stanley working in sustainability management role, and his name's Johan Lopez. He's going to be speaking at one of our upcoming sessions for the MA Climate and Society. He's one of our graduates. So there's a great deal of overlap in terms of outcomes, so to speak, but I think, for example, the MA in Climate and Society program, we really have a very strong core. We have a climate core that we feel very strongly in. If you're working in the climate space, if you're looking for that lens to apply to various sectors and industries, this program is going to be a good fit for you. Alternatively, if you say, well, Alfred, I'm looking for a great deal of flexibility, really focused on sustainability, and maybe I want to take a potpourri of maybe policy courses, the sustainability management program is a great fit in that they only have 2 required courses in the 36 credit hours, sustainability management and then a capstone. And then they have content areas that you're able to build out the rest of your schedule. So they are very distinct programs, but I do recognize that they all are very mission driven, and oftentimes many of the outcomes can be similar. The thing I'm going to do a huge plug on, and Damaris, I'm so sorry to do this to you again, but if we could do one more plug, we're going to host a graduate open house on Friday, October 27th. Nick, if you're in the tri-state area, I strongly encourage you to attend, or if you're not in the area, book a flight, have a fun New York City weekend. It's going to be a phenomenal opportunity because our open house allows students to go to breakout sessions. There's going to be a faculty and a current student panels among all 4 programs, and then you have a breakout session 1 and 2 where you can go and hear a little bit more from each program itself. So Nick, if you're able to come to Graduate Open House, if you've already registered, phenomenal. But I think you would be really somebody that would really love to join. I hope that was helpful. And then Stephanie asked, what is the acceptance rate of the master's program, and do you help incoming students find local housing? The acceptance rate varies, Stephanie, from year to year. In terms of our program, you know, I want to note this is not a PhD program at Columbia where we have a single-digit acceptance rate, nor is it, for example, the highly competitive undergraduate at Columbia College, for example. So we typically have around a 50% acceptance rate. Sometimes it's lower, depending on the year. I will say that there is a growing interest within the MA in Climate and Society program. We've only been seeing admissions applications increasing year over year, although we've been increasing the size of the cohort as well. So I encourage you, rather than thinking about the rate, think about the fit and whether or not you feel this program is the best fit for you, and moving forward then applying. The second question was relating to housing. And out of curiosity, Emily, I know that you are from Texas. Do you mind sharing? So I'll say this year, housing can be tricky. If you apply by the priority deadline, it could potentially increase your housing for Columbia Housing, but Columbia Housing is highly competitive. And I'll just say right now, we had 10 housing allotments for 103 students. So it's very tricky. But Emily, do you want to talk about how you approached it?
For sure. So I ended up not doing housing through Columbia. I ended up finding a apartment through StreetEasy, which if you're in the New York area, you're probably very, very, very familiar with. And I was from Texas, and I was in Texas at the time that I signed my lease. But I had some friends that were local in the city and who toured for me. And I also, this was unnecessary because I ended up signing a lease that was in Texas, but I had planned to come visit New York the week before I was planning to move in to tour apartments in person. And so I think that was probably the most challenging part about moving, but it definitely wasn't undoable by any means. And I think that maybe it was a little bit harder to figure out like find apartments. I don't know. Apartment hunting in New York is definitely a bit of a struggle, but there are definitely a lot of resources on StreetEasy via I know that the housing office also runs like a very elaborate portal that I know a lot of friends have found apartments through, because there will be listings that are for Columbia students or that are prioritized Columbia, that like landlords will post on there that they would like to fill with a Columbia student. And so I think that my New York apartment hunting experience wasn't as stressful as I was imagining.
Yeah. Thanks, Emily, for that. That was a little left field. Usually we talk about apartment hunting in the our accepted student events, but I'm loving that we're talking about it now. So I'm going to do 2 more questions just to be respectful of time. So Jonathan asks, I saw the application that part-time applicants are not eligible for CS fellowships. Is that inclusive of all fellowships, assistantships, scholarships? Excellent question, Jonathan. So yes, if you are planning on pursuing part-time, you are not eligible for climate and society fellowships, as there's an expectation that you would be a full-time working professional while enrolled in the program, and we prioritize our climate and society fellowships to our full-time learning community that are not working. In terms of assistantships, it wouldn't, if you are a part-time student as well, it wouldn't really make sense to be applying for departmental research assistantships, as again, you would typically be having a full-time role. But if there's more nuanced questions in that area, Jonathan, that you would like answered, please feel free to email me and I'm happy to work with you one-on-one on that. And then for one more question, Claire asked about the HEC Paris double degree opportunity. Yes, that's an exciting opportunity, Claire. It's a one-way degree program right now. So what we mean by that is you would first have to apply, get accepted to the HEC Paris Masters in Management program. And then while enrolled in the HEC Paris, you would then apply to the MA Climate and Society program. So if you're deeply interested in that program, then I would recommend first applying to the HEC Paris program. If for example, you're not sure right now, I would recommend go ahead then and submit an MA Climate and Society fellowship, or MA in Climate and Society application, forgive me, and then going to an HEC Paris info session, learning a little bit more about their degree program, making sure that you're really interested in their master's in management. Should I do one more, Emily? What's the vote? Should I
Yeah,
do one
for
more?
sure.
Let's do it. Okay, I have my BS in biology, but I'm very interested in financial business side of climate change and climate justice. Do I need to have a background in those subjects to apply? That's such a great question, Suzanne. Absolutely not. You can apply to the program with a BS in biology and still have a passion for climate justice or climate finance and cross-register in sustainable finance courses, for example. So no, you do not have to have a background in it, but very, very good question. And then Jennifer asked, does the open house just happen once per year? I'll be going to the USA on January 2024, and I'd like to visit the climate school to get a little bit better about the program. Yes, right now, Jennifer, it is just an annual event, but we are exploring possibly doing a spring open house. I'm not sure if we would do it in January. Weather can be unpredictable at that time, but Jennifer, it should not prevent you. You're still coming to the US, email us, and we would be happy to meet with you one-on-one and perhaps get maybe a classroom visit under your belt and even meet with a professor if possible. So we would love to see you, Jennifer. Another question's from Yannick. I'm from French-speaking country, but I'm currently pursuing my master's degree in English. Do I have to prove my English proficiency? Yes, Yannick, excellent question. We do need to see English as the sole language from your undergraduate university. So I would recommend pursuing perhaps the Duolingo English test. It's the most cost-effective option, and you can do it in the comfort of your home. It's completely virtual. And then I see Emily typing. And I'm going to answer just one more question. What is the podcast name? I'm going to get it for you guys. Hold on. It's such a good podcast. I know it's called The Big Switch, Dr. Melissa Lott. I'm going to type the answer because I literally spent a Saturday listening to it. The Big Switch.
And I'm happy, Alfred, to share my email if any students have questions on.
That's incredibly generous of you. I really appreciate that. If you, Emily, I'm happy to share. Would you want to put it? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think that the chat is disabled, so I can't send it in the chat, or like they won't see it if I send it in the chat.
Okay.
But if you want to share it in like an email, or if there's like any follow-up to the Zoom event.
Yeah, let me I
What's
see.
the link?
Let me do everyone. I just did everyone. Can you do it now? I'm so sorry.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Totally happy to do that. 1 second. Okay.
I'm so sorry. Damaris, you're muted. Oh.
Thank you, Damaris, for sending that.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say huge thank you to everybody that joined today's session. I do apologize if we didn't get through all questions, but if you do have additional questions, please feel free to email us. or email me in particular at admissions@climate.columbia.edu. And if you haven't already started an admissions application for the MA in Climate and Society, please, please, please feel free to do so. And Dhruv, I'm going to answer one more. Can we apply to the MA and the MPA? Yes, you can, because they're separate schools at Columbia University. One's housed within the School of International and Public Affairs, and the other one's housed at Columbia Climate School. So Dhruv, you are able to apply to both. Excellent question. And with that being said, huge thank you to everybody that joined us. Huge thank you to Emily. Emily, I so appreciate you lending your perspective and sharing kind of your climate school journey. Congratulations on your full-time professional position with Mailman School of Public Health. And I wish everybody a wonderful evening, and I look forward to continuing the conversation, corresponding with all of you. We'll also send out an email with my one-on-one appointment calendar. And thank you again, everybody. Take care and good night.